The Silent Observers. The Vestraxian Empire had ruled the galactic arm for millennia. Their crystalline bodies, impervious to radiation and capable of surviving in the vacuum of space, had allowed them to spread across thousands of star systems without the cumbersome life support systems lesser species required. Elder Karax stood on the observation deck of the Empire's foremost scientific vessel, his translucent form refracting the light of an unremarkable yellow star. "They have emerged from their cradle," scientist Nyrix announced, her crystalline appendages manipulating the holo display. "The primates of Sol 3 have achieved rudimentary space travel." Karax's crystalline form vibrated slightly in what passed for amusement among his kind. "Show me these creatures." The display shifted to reveal bipedal beings of flesh and bone, their soft exteriors wrapped in artificial coverings, helmets encasing their fragile heads as they bounced clumsily across the surface of their airless moon. "How quaint," Karax said. "Their bodies are so vulnerable. A single puncture would cause explosive decompression. Their bones would shatter under even minimal gravitational stress. They can survive in only the narrowest band of temperatures and pressures. Even the radiation from their own star slowly kills them. Yet they persist," Nyrix noted. "They spread across their world despite its volatile climate zones. They adapt using technology rather than evolution." Karax dismissed the observation with a wave. "We've seen this before. They'll destroy themselves before they reach the nearest star system. Their history is filled with territorial conflicts. Already they've discovered atomic energies and nearly annihilated themselves twice. The third time will be successful, I suspect. We should monitor them nonetheless," Nyrix suggested. "Protocol dictates observation of all spacefaring species." "As you wish," Karax conceded. "But divert minimal resources. These humans won't survive another century." 50 years later, Karax received an urgent communication. The humans had not only survived but had established a permanent presence on their red neighboring planet and several large orbital habitats. Their primitive rockets had been replaced with more efficient propulsion systems. "They live in sealed chambers filled with their atmospheric mixture," Nyrix reported. "Their fragility is compensated by their engineering. They've even begun manipulating their genetic code to better withstand the rigors of space." "Curious," Karax admitted, "but still insignificant. The nearest star remains decades away at their velocity." "There's more," Nyrix continued. "They've detected our observation probes." Karax's crystalline structure tensed. "Impossible. Our technology is beyond their detection capabilities. They shouldn't have the instruments to detect quantum fluctuations, yet they've developed them. They're actively searching for us now." "Remove the probes," Karax ordered. "Continue observation from a distance. These humans are unexpected." 20 years passed. Karax now headed the Xenosapien Monitoring Division, his earlier dismissal of humans replaced by cautious respect. They had achieved what should have been impossible for such delicate creatures: a permanent presence across their star system and the beginnings of interstellar exploration. "They've launched their first-generation ship toward Proxima Centauri," Nyrix reported. "Primitive by our standards, but remarkably effective. They've created a closed ecological system that could sustain their colony for the entire journey." "And the radiation problem?" Karax asked. "Solved through a combination of shielding and genetic engineering. They've modified some colonists to better withstand cosmic radiation. They modify their own code." Karax vibrated with concern. "Such practices are forbidden under imperial law." "They aren't bound by our laws," Nyrix pointed out. "And there's more. They've discovered the quantum slip principle." Karax's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. "That's theoretically impossible for a species at their technological level. It took us thousands of years to harness quantum mechanics for faster-than-light travel." "They approached it differently," Nyrix explained. "Where we mastered quantum manipulation through gradual understanding, they made intuitive leaps. They don't fully comprehend why their theories work, but they implement them regardless." "Dangerous," Karax whispered. recklessly dangerous. The meeting was interrupted by an emergency alert. One of the Vastraxian outposts near the human solar system had detected an unknown vessel approaching at impossible speeds. Impossible, Karax said as they rushed to the command center. Their quantum slip technology shouldn't be operational for decades at least. The main display showed a small, ungainly vessel of human design decelerating near the outpost. Its hull was patched in places, its propulsion systems a hybrid of technologies that shouldn't work together but somehow did. "They've arrived," Nirix said unnecessarily. A transmission came through, translated by the ship's computers into Vastraxian vibrational language. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth ship Pathfinder. We come in peace and friendship to the sentient beings we know have been watching us. We respectfully request communication." Karax stared at the visual feed showing the human captain. She was small, fragile, her body requiring constant life support. Yet she had crossed the void between stars in a vessel that by all rights should have failed. "How?" he asked simply. "We knew you were out there," Captain Vasquez replied with what humans called a smile. "We felt your presence for generations, seen the subtle signs of your observation. You're not as invisible as you think." "Your vessel shouldn't be capable of quantum slip travel," Karax stated. "We call it the Alcubierre drive," Vasquez explained. "It doesn't slip through quantum space so much as warp conventional space around the ship. Different approach, similar result." Nirix vibrated with excitement. They developed a completely alternative method of faster-than-light travel. "Necessity breeds innovation," Vasquez said. "We couldn't wait centuries to explore the stars. Our lives are too short. So we found another way." Karax studied the human captain, seeing her in a new light. These creatures, so physically vulnerable, had overcome their limitations through sheer determination and creative thinking. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally. "By all logical assessments, your species should never have survived to reach the stars. Your bodies are fragile, your world volatile, your society prone to conflict. Yet here we are." Vasquez replied simply. "Yes," Karax agreed. "Here you are. And now we must decide what to do about that." The first official meeting between humans and Vastraxians lasted for hours. The humans, despite their physical fragility, displayed remarkable diplomatic skill. They spoke of cooperation, of shared knowledge, of a galaxy large enough for all sentient species. As the human delegation departed, Karax turned to Nirix. "We've underestimated them at every turn. Their weakness has become their strength. They adapt because they must. They innovate because they cannot survive otherwise. What will you recommend to the Imperial Council?" Nirix asked. Karax was silent for a long moment. "Caution, respect, and preparation. These humans, they're unlike anything we've encountered before. Their very fragility has forged them into something formidable." "Have you seen them?" Nirix asked, echoing the ancient Vastraxian warning about dangerous species. "Yes," Karax replied solemnly. "I have seen them, and they have seen us." The Reckoning. The Vastraxian Imperial Council was not pleased with Karax's report. Elder Zivax, head of the Expansion Division, vibrated with contempt. "These humans are an anomaly, nothing more," he declared. "Their physical limitations make them inherently inferior. Their technology is borrowed and unstable. They must be contained before they destabilize established trade routes and treaty zones." Karax stood his ground. "With respect, Elder, I believe containment would be a mistake. The humans have demonstrated exceptional ability to overcome obstacles. Attempting to limit them may provoke precisely the response we wish to avoid. They are dangerous precisely because they are desperate," Zivax countered. "Their short lifespans drive them to recklessness. Their genetic manipulation practices are abhorrent. Their quantum technology is unstable. They must be guided, firmly." The council voted. Containment was approved by a narrow margin. A subtle campaign would begin immediately. Navigation hazards would mysteriously appear along human expansion routes. Trading partners would suddenly find human goods less desirable. Technological failures would increase in frequency. Karax departed the council chambers in low spirits, his crystalline form dulled with concern. "They don't understand what they're provoking," he told Nirix. "No," she agreed. "They don't." 2 standard cycles later, the containment strategy was failing spectacularly. Human expansion had not slowed but accelerated. Where navigational hazards appeared, humans developed better sensors and more versatile navigational systems. When trade faltered, they established new markets. When their technology failed, they innovated workarounds. They thrive on adversity, Nirix observed as they reviewed the latest reports. The more obstacles we place in their path, the stronger they become. Worse still, humans had identified the pattern. A diplomatic communique arrived from the newly formed Human Interstellar Cooperative, requesting a formal meeting with Vastraxian representatives to discuss the systematic interference with lawful human activities. The Imperial Council could no longer ignore the situation. Karax was appointed chief negotiator, a position he accepted with grim determination. The diplomatic summit took place on a neutral station orbiting a gas giant in unaligned space. The human delegation was led by Ambassador Sanjay Patel, a seasoned diplomat whose calm demeanor belied the tension in the room. "Let's dispense with pretense," Patel began. "We know the Vastraxian Empire has been systematically attempting to contain human expansion for the past 2 years. We know your council views us as a destabilizing influence. We're here to correct that misperception." Karax appreciated the directness. "The Council has concerns about human methods and technologies. Your genetic engineering practices, your approach to quantum mechanics. These things have historically led to catastrophic outcomes for other species. Yet not for us," Patel responded. "What you see as recklessness, we see as necessary adaptation. We cannot survive in space as you do, with your crystalline forms impervious to radiation and vacuum. We must change either our environments or ourselves, often both." The negotiations continued for days, making little progress. The Vastraxian position remained firm. Human expansion must be controlled and regulated. The human position was equally immovable. They would not be constrained. The impasse was broken by an unexpected development. A distress signal reached the diplomatic station. A passenger liner was under attack by Morgrath raiders, a notoriously violent species that preyed on shipping lanes. "The nearest Vastraxian military vessel is 3 hours away at Quantum Slip," Karax's aide reported. Ambassador Patel immediately stood. "The human vessel defender is 20 minutes out. Captain Lena Okafor requests permission to respond." Karax hesitated only briefly. "Granted." The diplomatic proceedings paused as both delegations monitored the unfolding rescue operation. The Defender, a human military vessel that had accompanied the diplomatic team, arrived at the scene to find the passenger liner severely damaged and boarded by Morgrath raiders. What followed astonished even Karax. The human response was swift and decisive. Their soldiers, encased in powered armor that compensated for their physical weaknesses, boarded the liner. Despite the Morgrath's natural armor and superior strength, the humans fought with unexpected effectiveness, using coordinated tactics and adaptive technology. "They're evacuating the passengers first," Nirix noted as they watched. "Even though it puts their soldiers at greater risk. A questionable tactical decision," one of the Vastraxian military observers commented. Yet the humans succeeded. Every surviving passenger was rescued, and the Morgrath raiders were either captured or driven off. The human captain then coordinated repairs to the damaged liner, improvising solutions with available materials. When Captain Okafor reported back, her face was streaked with sweat, her voice tired but resolute. "All passengers secure, Ambassador." 52 survivors, including 18 Vastraxians, 14 Polarians, and various others. "We've stabilized the liner and can escort it to the nearest port." Ambassador Patel turned to Karax. "This is who we are, Elder Karax. We don't seek conflict, but neither will we shy from necessary action. We save lives where we can, regardless of species. We adapt, we overcome, we persist. Not because we're reckless, but because we must. The incident changed the tenor of the negotiations. Carax requested an emergency session with the Imperial Council, where he presented not only records of the rescue, but a comprehensive analysis of human behavior under stress. "They are not what we assumed," he told the Council. "Their physical fragility has not made them weak but resourceful. Their brief lives have not made them reckless but decisive. They value life, all life, in ways that match our own highest principles." Elder Zyvax remained unconvinced. One incident does not erase concerns about their destabilizing potential. "Perhaps not," Carax conceded, "but it suggests a different approach. Rather than containment, I propose engagement, guided partnership rather than imposed restriction." The debate within the Council was intense, but ultimately Carax's position prevailed by a single vote. A formal treaty was drafted between the Vastraxian Empire and the Human Interstellar Cooperative, the first such agreement the Empire had ever signed with such a young species. The signing ceremony took place exactly where the negotiations had begun. Ambassador Patel and Elder Carax, now elevated to Imperial Envoy status, formalized the historic document. "This is just the beginning," Patel said as the formalities concluded. "Humanity has much to learn from the Vastraxians, and we hope we have something to offer in return." "You already have," Carax replied. "You've reminded an ancient species that age does not always bring wisdom, and that physical form does not determine worth." A decade later, the partnership between humans and Vastraxians had transformed the galactic arm. Human innovation combined with Vastraxian stability had led to unprecedented advances. Human colonies now existed alongside Vastraxian outposts, each species maintaining their unique environments while sharing knowledge and resources. Carax, now approaching the end of his long life, stood on the observation deck of the first joint human-Vastraxian scientific vessel. Beside him stood Admiral Elena Vasquez, the former captain who had made first contact, now a respected elder among her kind, though only a few decades had passed. "Did you ever imagine we would come this far?" Vasquez asked, gazing at the experimental quantum drive the ship was preparing to test, a perfect blending of human intuition and Vastraxian precision. "Never," Carax admitted. "When I first observed your kind, I saw only your limitations. I failed to see that limitations can be the crucible of greatness. And we failed to see that stability has its own rewards," Vasquez replied. "We've learned patience from your people, while perhaps you've learned some useful impatience from us." Carax's crystalline form resonated with amusement. "Indeed." The ship's captain announced that the new drive was ready for its first test. If successful, it would reduce quantum slip time by half, opening new regions of the galaxy to exploration. As the countdown began, Carax turned to Vasquez. "Have you seen them?" he asked, using the ancient Vastraxian question that had once been a warning, but now carried a different meaning. Vasquez smiled, understanding the reference from their cultural exchanges. "Yes," she replied. "I have seen them. And together, we will see much more." The ship's new drive engaged, and the stars blurred around them as two very different species ventured into the unknown, together.